Hi, today I'd like to talk about story mapping. In our Circle of Love program, we have 50 stories, main stories. And the idea is that we use these stories to connect them to the theme. And so, for example, the Genie of the Sea, we connect to water. The Gluskabi and the Wind Eagle, we connect to wind. The Little Man on the Moon, we connect to space. So from the story, we organize activities that connect to a bigger theme. And from the bigger theme, we connect to the circle of love. And so the children will get, from one story, they are able to connect to the whole cosmos. And so from one story, we analyze the elements of the story, and then we bring in all kinds of maybe academic skills or thinking skills to work with the story. And so usually, if we work with the story, we have 5 main elements, which is the character, which is who is the story about. We talk about settings, where does the story take place? We talk about the conflict and what is happening in the story. We talk about the plot. How does it develop? The time sequence. And we talk about the theme and why of the story. What is the story's purpose? What does it want to tell us? And so we usually, with these 5 themes, we can start to analyze the story. And through this process of analyzing stories, children develop different thinking skills. And so, for example, in the Gluskabi story, we can talk about the main character, means Gluskabi, and his grandmother. Now, from these 2 characters, there's some elements. Of course, we can talk about gender. In the Native American culture, we talk about the role of women and men. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be who respects who listens to who can tell others what to do, what are the responsibilities, the older people, the younger people. So we have this discussion, and we can research some and share this with our children. The second in the story, of course, we have to talk about the wind eagle. And we talk about the wind. So we have the ecological angle. And where does the wind come from? What is the science of wind? And then what happens when we change the weather? And when we change the balance in nature, as it happens in the story. And that, of course, the third element is that Gluskabi, he is a hunter. Now, we can learn about the hunting methods of native peoples. Did they just go and shoot and kill? Or was there a system? Now, many Indian tribes, they had a system of rotation. They would hunt in a certain area, then move to another area, and let the area where they had been hunting recover. So they used to divide their area hunting area into 4 sections, and they would move with the time. Hunting for Indians was also not a barbarian activity. There was respect, and there was consideration for the balance of nature. So that's a very interesting area to discover. And then, of course, there is the area of language. And in the story, we use an Indian chant, Native American chant. So we talk about language. Of course, we can connect it to our mother tongues, but we also can bring in the respect for tribal languages. And what is the role of languages? Should we preserve them, or should we just let them die out? So that is one example. Another example is, for example, the Little Man on the Moon. The Little Man on the Moon is basically about alien life. And we call it alien. But basically, we could even say that our own life actually originates on another planet. And people say that life might have come from Mars and our Earth's life. So this is discussion, first of all, about life on other planets. Then we can talk about the conditions for life on other planets. This story is also a story about communication. How do we talk to somebody? How do we communicate with somebody who doesn't know our spoken words? And there are different discussions we can bring up in this. And then, of course, there is the aspect of space travel, going into space and exploring space. How can we travel? How do they do it? What is the history of space travel so far? What is the next step going to be? And so actually from one story, we can expand into a wide variety of areas. Now, there are three main purposes with this. Of course, the first one is the academic side. We hope through the stories and connecting elements to the stories, children learn language, nature, science, geography, history. They learn grammar. They learn all the kinds of skills that they have to use when they grow up. Now, the second one is philosophy. Philosophy means the love of wisdom. And actually, through stories, we hope children learn to think about thinking. Now, Piaget, he actually said children don't have the capacity for philosophical analysis. And I think that our experience shows us the opposite. And children have a lot of wisdom, and children have a lot of interesting insights in relationships, in situations, in the possibilities. Children are very curious about all things of life. So thinking about situations. Now this leads us to the third aspect, which is the critical thinking. And is it true or is it not true? And I think today in the society, we need critical thinking skills to be able to navigate through the online tsunami of fake news. And this is the problem today. So learning to think with wisdom, and learning to think with your intellect. These are very interesting areas that stories can guide us towards. Now, thinking in general is probably the most interesting thing that we ever can do. And we can discover gravity, we have discovered magnetism, we discovered electricity. And though people understand these things don't understand us. So actually, thinking is something very special. And if we can learn to think more, and think and love to think more, and love to use our mind, and we can explore infinity. And this is the beautiful thing, that many people say the mind is the cause of all our problems. The mind is also the solution to all the problems. And when we train minds, we can train the path to freedom. And so I think from stories, we encourage children towards deeper thinking. And I think that is the most beautiful gift we can give to our children.